Take up the mantle God gives you. Or better titled, be careful what you ask for. Oh, wait, you didn't hear that, did you? Maybe a better title would have been, be careful what you ask for. There's an old Chinese proverb that says that very thing. Be careful what you ask for because you might get it. Elijah, this great, wonderful prophet of God, this worker of miracles, this person who brought Israel on the way back to God, he knew that his time was short. He knew that at any point God would call him home. And like us, he assumed that when he was called home, it would be because he would die to this earthly flesh and be taken away in spirit. But that wasn't the plan God had for him. And God spoke to him just a little before he left this world and said, Elijah, I'm going to take you up with me in the flesh. I'm going to bring you with me into heaven. Now God had done that before with Enoch. In the fifth generation from Adam, Enoch walked with God and then he was no more. He walked with God and he just disappeared. What an amazing thing. But God said to Elijah, okay, I'm going to let you take a rest now, but you're going to have to find somebody to take your place. Don't you love training somebody to do your job? Just love it. And then they come in and they know more than you do. Or at least they think, right? Yeah, I just love that. I love it when people walk in and say, oh, you know, if I were you, I'd do it this way. I do it my way or the highway, right? Well, Elijah could have said that to God. Look, I've done everything you asked. You're going to take me up into heaven. Why do I care who goes after me? But he didn't. He said, God, whatever you want from me, I'll do. And so Elijah is taken into heaven in 2 Kings chapter 2. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were traveling from Gilgal. And Elijah said to Elisha, stay here, for the Lord has told me to go to Bethel. But Elisha replied, as surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you. So they went down together to Bethel. The group of prophets from Bethel came to Elisha and asked him, did you know that the Lord is going to take your master away from you today? Of course I know, Elijah answered, but be quiet about it. In other words, yeah, I know, but I don't want to talk about it right now. Cassie's getting married in November, but I don't want to talk about it right now. Right? Has that situation ever presented itself to you? Something is very important, and it's so important it weighs on your mind, but I don't want to think about that right now. Sometimes it's a doctor's appointment. Sometimes it's a new position at work. Sometimes it's even training your successor. And it's not much fun. I don't want to think about that right now. Elisha said, of course I know, but be quiet about it. Then Elijah said to Elisha, stay here, for the Lord has told me to go to Jericho. But Elisha replied again, as surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you. So they went on together to Jericho. Then the group of prophets from Jericho came to Elisha and asked him, do you know that the Lord is going to take your master away from you today? He can't catch a break, can he? Everywhere he goes. Of course I know, Elijah answered, but be quiet about it. Then Elijah said to Elisha, stay here, for the Lord has told me to go to the Jordan River. But again, Elisha replied, as surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you. So they went on together. What is Elijah doing here that is so important? What is he doing that would earn him the title of being the prophet of Israel? When he is told by the current prophet, just stay here. You don't need to go with me. I've been told to go here. And Elisha says, I'm going. He earned that position by agreeing to do what he knew was right, even if he was told differently. He knew what he was supposed to do, even though Elisha said to him, just stay here. I've got it taken care of. Stay here and relax. He said, no, I'm not going to stay here. I'm coming with you. Every breath you take, I'm going to breathe with you. Then Elijah Then Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has told me to go to the Jordan River." But again Elisha replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you." So they went on together. 50 men from the group of prophets also went and watched from a distance as Elijah and Elisha stopped beside the Jordan River. Then Elijah folded his cloak together and struck the water with it. The river divided, and the two of them went across on dry ground. That's important to know. Write that down. When they came to the other side, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me what I can do for you before I am taken away." And Elisha replied, "Please let me inherit a double share of your spirit and become your successor." Be careful what you ask for. He didn't just say, "I want to be like you." He said, "I want to be twice the man of God that you are." That's a big order. In fact, it's such a big order that Elijah said, "Yeah, you've asked a difficult thing." Elijah replied, "If you see me when I'm taken from you, then you will get your request. If not, then you won't." So I said, remember, Elijah took off his cloak, his coat, his mantle, and he struck it on the river Jordan, and the river parted. When Jesus met the people on the Mount of Olives, he met Moses and Elijah. Peter says, "Let us build 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." And Jesus said, "No, it's enough that they were here." Moses listened to God when God said, "Strike the rock and water will come forth." He listened to God when he said, "Go down there and strike your staff on the sea and it will part." He did the things that seemed impossible. He did them because he trusted in God. Elijah had seen so many beautiful, miraculous things that God had done. Nothing surprised him anymore. It doesn't say anything about he hesitated or he heard God say, "Take off your coat." No, he took it off and smacked it on the water and it parted. Can you imagine Elisha at this moment? Whew, I like that. That's some power. I would love to have that. So when we hear that Elisha says, "I want double what you've got," my first thought was, well, you're kind of greedy. Did you think God didn't give Elijah enough that you have to have double? That's not what it means at all. It means that Elijah saw the God of Israel and he performed what the God of Israel told him to do. And Elisha witnessed Elijah listening to God and said, "I want to be twice the man of God you are. I want to be so close to God that people see him in me." And he got what he wished for. Elijah said, "If you see me when I'm taken from you, you'll get your request. But if not, then you won't." As they were walking along and talking, suddenly a chariot of fire appeared, drawn by horses of fire. It drove between the two men, separating them. And Elijah was carried by a whirlwind into heaven. Elisha saw it and cried out, my father, I see the chariots and the charioteers of Israel." And as they disappeared from sight, Elisha tore his clothes in distress. He tore his clothes in distress. Have you seen any of the news coverage of the survivors of massacres, the survivors of earthquakes? They're literally in travail. They're ripping their clothes. They're so upset that they can't do anything else but cry and mourn and ask why. And that's what Elisha did. He knew God was taking Elijah, but he said, "Oh, where's he gone?" And he tears his clothes. But before he did that, guess what he did? He made sure he kept his eyes on Elijah. He made sure that he watched him go to heaven. Because Elijah told him, there's only one thing you have to do. If you really want what you said, you better make sure you keep your eyes on me. And it's going to be hard because God's going to take me away just like that. But you better watch. And if you watch, it'll come true. You know, that's a lesson that we need to learn. Sometimes when life gets hard, Sometimes when things happen and we don't want to do what we're told, we just don't do it. We just don't do it. Put it off. Elijah said, yeah, I know, but I don't want to think about it right now. We just put it off. Elisha did the very thing he was told, and that's what was so important. It made no difference whatsoever. If God had chosen Elisha, would it have mattered if he really watched him go into? It wouldn't have made any difference. If God had chosen him, he was the chosen one. But instead, Elisha says, I'm going to do what you told me to do. It didn't make any sense. He didn't want to hear that Elijah was going to be taken away. In fact, every time somebody brought it up, and they brought it up a lot, he said, leave me alone with this. I don't want to talk about it. I don't even think about it right now. But as soon as Elijah said to him, you better keep your eyes on me. You better watch, or you're not going to get what you asked for. He did it. He stopped saying, I don't want to think about it, and he started thinking, I want to know more about it. I want to know God. I want to see him take Elijah. I want to be his successor. Oh, Elisha tore his clothes in distress. When he had seen Elijah taken to heaven, he was distraught to the point of utter grief, and he tore his clothes. But in verse 13 it says, Elisha picked up Elijah's cloak, which had fallen when he was taken up. Then Elisha returned to the banks of the Jordan River. He struck the water with Elijah's cloak and cried out, where is the Lord, the God of Elijah? Then the river divided, and Elisha went across. He said, where are you? I did what you said. Where are you? Guess what? He answered. Guess what? God showed up. Guess what? He did the same thing that Elijah had done moments before. Guess what? He's going to do twice the miracles that Elijah had done. Guess what? He's going to be the man of God that he asked to be. He's not going to say, well, thank you for doing this. I'll come back next Sunday. Right? He didn't say, he said, I'm going to do it. If you tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. And what's interesting is in the next few verses it says, when the group of prophets from Jericho saw from a distance what had happened, they exclaimed, Elijah's spirit rests upon Elisha. These are the same people who had said to him, your master's going to be taken away from you today. And Elisha said, just stop, okay? I don't want to talk about this right now. So they went to him and met him and bowed to the ground before him. Sir, they said, just say the word, and 50 of our strongest men will search the wilderness for your master. Perhaps the Spirit of the Lord has left him on some mountain or in some valley. See, this is why Elijah said, you better watch where I'm going. Because the men of God said, we know he's out here somewhere. Just say the word and we'll go find him. Consider that for a minute. The men of God, they had been the first to say to Elisha, he's going to take him away. And they were the first to say, give us the word and we'll go look for him. Did they really believe that God was going to take Elijah away? No, they didn't believe it for a second. They did not believe it because they said to Elisha, we see who you are. We see the power of God on you. And yet, you just give us the word and we'll go find him because we know he's around here somewhere. Is that not what we do in our faith all the time? We pray, God, be with the sick. God, comfort those who need you. God, give peace of mind and peace of spirit to those who are grieving. God, we say it over and over, but do we really believe it? Do we really believe it? People say, oh, you're Christian. You know God. It's amazing to me. People say they refer to me as a man of the cloth or a man of God, and I laugh. I know God, but I'm no man of God. Because if I were a man of God, I would look where he tells me to look. And I would stay where he tells me to stay. And I would go where he tells me to go. And yet, I put my needs before his. Am I the only one? I put my needs before his. I say, I appreciate the offer, God, but I'm a little busy right now. No, Elisha said, don't send them. But they kept urging him until they shamed him into agreeing, and he finally said, all right, send them. So 50 men searched for 3 days but did not find Elijah. Elisha was still in Jericho when they returned. Didn't I tell you not to go? He asked. Didn't I say? Don't do it. They shamed him. They asked him so many times. Parents, have you been in this situation? Hey, Dad, I need $10 to get that toy. Dad, I need this. And you get to the point where you're going, just all right. Get your wallet out and give it to him and just stop. That's what Elisha did. He said, okay, fine. I've explained to you where he is. You're not going to listen to me. You have no connection to God whatsoever. So go do what you want. You're going to do it anyway. Do what you want. Thank God he doesn't do that to us. Thank God he doesn't give up on us and say, all right, fine, do what you want. Because doing what we want is what got us into the mess in the first place. We think of ourselves as Christians. We think of ourselves as being like Jesus. We think of ourselves as being members of a body of Christ, and yet we still want to do what we want to do. I want to go look for him. I know he's around here. I want to look for God. I know he's around here. He's in your heart. You don't have to look for him. No, I really want to go look for him. He's in your heart. You don't have to go look for him. Please let me go look for him. Fine, go do what you want. Go do what you want. I know what's going to happen. You're going to come back and say, we couldn't find him. And guess what? They couldn't find him because God had taken him. Now, how was Elijah so sure that they weren't going to find God? What had happened that he was so certain they wouldn't find him that he said, just go do what you want anyway? Because he kept his eyes on Elijah, just like Elijah said. It was so important to him that he become the successor, the man of God, double the amount of Elijah, that he did the impossible. He kept his eyes on a fiery chariot and fiery horses, and he watched his master being taken away. He did the impossible. And because he was faithful enough to do that, God rewarded him. God gave him what he asked for. He picked up the mantle that Elijah had smacked the water with. And he took that mantle and he didn't ask God for anything. He just smacked it on the water. And guess what? It happened. He didn't ask God for it. He just did it. He had seen it done. He knew God was present. He knew that he had obeyed Elijah's wishes. So he was going to do exactly what Elijah had done. Now, if you know anything about the story of Elisha, you know that he also got double the trouble Elijah got. He got double of everything. And some people might say he had it worse. But the one thing that did not happen with Elisha that did with Elijah is God let Elisha pass. God let Elisha die in physical form. We're not given a reason why that happened. We're not told why he wasn't taken with God in a chariot of fire. We don't know why, but we know this. God gave him exactly what he asked for. He wanted a double portion. He wanted to pick up that mantle and be like his master had been, except he wanted to do twice as much for God. I want to do twice what you've done. And God said, okay, you can. But I'm not going to take you up the way I did him. See, sometimes God sends us on an incredible errand to do certain things. And we say, yes, Lord, I'll do it. It may be in a mission trip to go overseas. It may be to go down and work in a soup kitchen. We don't know, but God tells us to do things, and we say, yes, I'll go. And sometimes we don't get rewarded in the thing that we think we will, in the way we think we We don't get rewarded in the way we think we will. Elisha said, I want double what you've got. And God took Elijah in a fiery chariot. What did Elisha think was going to happen to him? Double. God's going to send an army of angels down here. He's going to take me up into heaven. He's going to let me see I don't know, we don't know what but he thought, if I get double the blessing, I'm going to get double the reward. Guess what, folks? That's not how it happens. That's not how it goes. If you do twice the effort, you're going to get twice the punishment. If you work twice as hard, the devil's going to come twice as hard. He's going to come at you with everything he has. If the devil leaves you alone, you better wake up. Did you hear that? If the devil leaves you alone, you need to wake up. You're not doing something right. In fact, you may not be doing anything right. Because he's going to come after you with everything he has, from physical, spiritual, emotional, relational. He's going to come at you with everything he's got. And you're going to say, but I did what you told me to do. And he'll say to you, yes, you did, and I thank you for doing that. Now, suck it up, Buttercup. You're right. You did what I asked you to do. So what are you moaning about? What are you crying about? You said you wanted to do twice the work. Do it. I give you permission, do it. And he did. And then he said, but why am I not rewarded? Why do I not get double the reward? I find myself thinking that sometimes. God, I did what you said to do. Did I do enough? Did I go far enough? Did I work hard enough? Did I make enough visits? Did I make enough phone calls? Did I send as many cards as I needed? What do you want me to do? I'll do it. And in my mind, I'm not doing it for his glory. I'm doing it for my reward. I may be the only one, but I know that when I am finally rewarded, when I'm finally given the opportunity to fall at the feet of my Savior, the reward will be beyond anything I can imagine. I don't want to be rewarded here on earth. I don't want to have earthly desire. I don't want to have the things of this world. I want what's in heaven. And I said this in the first service. We know that Jesus said, I am going to be with my Father. And in my Father's house there are many rooms. In my Father's mansion, in my Father's palace, there are many rooms. I'm going there to prepare a spot for you. And we think sometimes, whoo, I'm finally going to get that big mansion in the sky. That's not the reward. That's not the reward. We look at things of the earth with earthly eyes, and we see gold and diamonds and rubies and money and prosperity. We see all those things as being beautiful rewards for the things that we've done. The hard work we've done, we become rewarded with earthly things. So when we get to heaven, the only thing that will be on our minds is worshiping Jesus. And gold will mean so little to us that the roads are paved in it. Diamonds and rubies and sapphires, they'll mean so little that God has built houses out of it. It's nothing more than a brick. It's nothing more than a rock. Because the true reward is being with your Lord. Elisha, while he may have thought that his reward would be something physical, in his heart he knew that the only reward that's ever promised is the joy of the Lord is your strength. And if he gives you strength in any situation, count it as gain and count the world as loss. Because there's nothing on this earth, no amount of money, no amount of anything that the world considers valuable. There's nothing. If they gave it all to you, it's not worth your soul. They could give it all. Bow down and worship me, and you can have it all. No, what you need to say is, get behind me, Satan, because my reward waits for me in heaven. And it's a reward that is beyond anything I can. The word tells us, Paul tells us, that what is being prepared for us is so amazingly phenomenal that we can't even begin to fathom it. Our minds have no way of processing how wonderful it will be. So the best, most beautiful thing you can think of will pale in the light of his glory. You're given a task. you're given a requirement. Love one another. Love one another. How will people know that you're my disciples? By your love for one another. Jesus said over and over, and his disciples said over and over, if you love your neighbor, you've completed everything that God's asked of you. You can strike your cloak on water and divide the river, but that's not the reward. You can go and spread the news of Jesus all over the world, and that's not the reward. When you get to heaven, the reward you get will be, well, I don't know what it'll be. And that's the beauty of it. When Jesus said, I'm going to my Father's house and I'm preparing a place for you, the disciples, after being with him for all that time, they said, well, we don't know where you're going. How would we know? You got to imagine that Jesus just kind of slapped his forehead. Have you not been listening? Have you been asleep? Were you not listening? I've told you over and over, this is what you have to do. We are to love one another. We are to help one another in our most desperate situations. We are to become one body in Christ.